I've always believed that trust is the foundation of any relationship. My wife, Jessica, and I had built a life together on that foundation for nearly a decade. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I thought we were solid. At least, until everything came crashing down. I remember the morning it all started to unravel, the day I discovered she was cheating on me. It began with subtle changes in Jessica's behavior. She started coming home late more often, claiming she was working late at the office. I wanted to believe her. After all, she had a demanding job as a marketing manager, and I respected her dedication. But there were other signs, too. I noticed that she was more irritable than usual, often snapping at me over trivial things. When I tried to talk to her about how she was feeling, she would roll her eyes and tell me I was being dramatic. Things came to a head one night when I found myself sleeping in the guest room. It was a weird little ritual we had developed over the past few weeks. I had a cold and didn't want to keep her awake with my sniffling. The next morning, Jessica walked into the kitchen looking like she hadn't slept at all. I didn't think much of it at the time. I poured myself a cup of coffee and asked her how she slept. She shot me a look that could freeze hell over and said, "Oh, you mean yelling at me last night? That was really mature of you." I was taken aback. "What are you talking about? I was sleeping in the guest room." She shrugged it off, giving me that bitchy look that said I was the problem. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was a nagging instinct that grew louder with each passing day. Then the discovery happened. One afternoon, I came home early from work, eager to surprise her with dinner. As I stepped through the front door, I heard muffled voices coming from our bedroom. My heart began to race. I tiptoed down the hallway, already knowing something was wrong. Peeking through the slightly ajar door, I saw Jessica, her hair tousled and a smirk on her face, on a video call with someone. A man. They were laughing and flirting in a way that felt intimate, far too intimate for just friends. I felt my stomach drop. The world around me faded away, and all I could focus on was the betrayals unraveling before my eyes. I didn't want to believe it, but the proof was right there. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest, and retreated to the kitchen. I needed to gather my thoughts to process what I had just seen. A whirlwind of emotions swept over me: anger, sadness, confusion. How could she do this to me? Later that evening, when Jessica came home, I confronted her. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind 1,000 times, but when it came out, it felt different. "I saw you with him, Jess. I saw everything." To my surprise, she laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "What are you talking about? You're imagining things. You always do this. You're so insecure." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she was deflecting my pain, twisting my words, and making me feel like the villain in this story. "This isn't about me being insecure. You cheated on me." Her expression shifted. For a moment, I saw something like fear in her eyes, but it quickly disappeared. She crossed her arms, looking at me as if I were the unreasonable one. "You don't know what you saw. I was just being friendly. You never believe me." I felt a surge of frustration. "I know what I saw, Jess. You need to stop lying." But her denial was relentless. I felt like I was in a boxing ring, fighting a battle I was destined to lose. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, grappling with the pain of betrayal and the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. With sleepless nights came clarity. I was no longer the naive husband who would accept excuses and lies. I could plan my next move, but I needed to figure out how to make her understand the depth of her betrayal and how I would reclaim my dignity. I had a decision to make. Part of me wanted to fight for our marriage, to try and save what was left. But another part was screaming for justice. I wanted her to feel the pain she had inflicted on me, to understand the consequences of her actions. I needed a plan, something that would show her that I would no longer be the victim in this situation. What would this revenge look like? I didn't know yet, but I was ready to find out. The following days were a blur of anger and confusion, but I was resolute. I had gone from being the soft-spoken husband to someone ready to reclaim his power. I started observing Jessica closely, trying to piece together the puzzle of her infidelity. Every smile she shared with her phone, every late night she claimed was for work, it all became fodder for my growing resentment. I needed proof, something tangible that would underscore her betrayal. I decided to put my plan into action. I enlisted the help of my best friend, Mark, who had a knack for technology and could help me gather evidence without alerting her. Mark had always been supportive, and I was grateful I could rely on him during this tumultuous time. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked one evening over beers at our usual spot. "Confronting her with evidence is one thing, but what if she turns it around on you? You know how she can twist things." I nodded, acknowledging his concerns. "I have to do this, Mark. I can't just sit back and let her play me for a fool. I need to show her I know what she's doing." Mark agreed to help. He suggested we set up a discreet surveillance system to catch any indiscretions at home. It felt sneaky, almost like something out of a movie, but I could see no other way to expose the truth. It was time to dig deeper. We spent the next evening installing a small camera in the living room, out of sight but still capable of capturing what went on in our home. I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I knew that once I pressed play on whatever we recorded, I would be confronting the reality of my marriage, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. After a week of waiting, the day came for us to check the footage. I sat next to Mark, a knot in my stomach as we reviewed the recordings. I was filled with hope that I would find something to confirm my suspicions, but also terrified of what I might see. The first few days of footage showed nothing out of the ordinary. Jessica came home, cooked dinner, and lounged on the couch, often scrolling through her phone. I was about to lose hope when, on the fifth day of the recording, everything changed. She came home late that evening, and I could tell she was a bit tipsy. I felt a rush of anger as I watched her take a call in the kitchen, her voice low but animated. It was clear she was talking to someone outside of our relationship. I leaned in closer, watching as she laughed at something the caller said. I glanced at Mark, who raised an eyebrow, signaling that he was just as intrigued as I was. Then Jessica walked into the living room, took off her shoes, and plopped onto the couch, still holding her phone. A few moments passed, and then I saw him, Michael, the man I suspected she was seeing. My heart raced as I watched her flirt with this guy. They exchanged playful banter, and then she leaned back, her laughter echoing in the living room. She casually tossed her hair back, the way she used to do when we first started dating. It hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a fleeting moment of infidelity, it was a full-blown affair, filled with intimacy and affection that she had denied me for too long. I felt anger boiling inside me, and I barely managed to contain it. "That's it. I can't take this anymore," I said through clenched teeth. Mark put a hand on my shoulder. "Take a deep breath. You need to think this through. What's your next step?" I didn't have a clear answer, but I knew one thing. She needed to understand the gravity of what she was doing. The next day was a Saturday, and I planned to confront her. I'd let her know I had proof and that her lies had consequences. As I prepared to face Jessica, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I had given her everything, my love, my trust, and she was throwing it away like it meant nothing. It was time for her to feel the weight of her choices. That night, I decided to write down everything I wanted to say. My hands shook as I recounted the hurt, the anger, and the betrayal I felt. I wanted her to understand how her actions had affected me, how they had torn me apart. I wanted her to see that I would never again be the innocent husband who swallowed her lies without question. The next morning, I nervously paced around the house, waiting for her to wake up. As the sun streamed through the kitchen window, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. When she finally emerged, bleary-eyed and disheveled, I knew it was time to confront the truth. "Jessica," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk." She looked at me, suspicion crossing her face, but I pressed on, ready to reveal the evidence of her betrayal. It was time for her to face the truth, and for me to reclaim my dignity. As I stood in the kitchen, the morning light filtering through the window, I felt a surge of adrenaline. The moment had finally arrived. I took a deep breath and turned to Jessica, who was now pouring herself a cup of coffee, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. "Jessica," I said again, my voice firmer this time, "we need to talk." She glanced up, eyebrows raised, and took a sip of her coffee. "Can it wait? I just woke up and I really need to get ready for the day." "No, it can't wait," I replied, matching her intensity. "This is important. We need to address what's been happening between us specifically, what you've been doing behind my back." Her face shifted from casual annoyance to confusion and then to a guarded expression. "What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about." I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Do you really think you can keep lying to me? I saw the videos, Jess. I saw you with him. You're cheating on me." For a moment she stood frozen, her cup of coffee halfway to her lips. Then her expression hardened and she set the cup down on the counter with a deliberate clink. "You're being ridiculous. You have no proof. You're just trying to start a fight because you're insecure." I shook my head in disbelief. Insecure? I'm not the one flirting and laughing with another man while my husband is at home wondering what's wrong. I have it. All on video, Jessica, I can show you. Her eyes narrowed and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. "Videos? You're spying on me now. This is low even for you." "Spying?" I shot back. "You call it spying, I call it wanting to uncover the truth. You've been lying to me for weeks. It's time you acknowledge what you've done." "Fine, maybe I've been a little distant," she admitted, but her tone was defensive. "But it doesn't mean I'm cheating. We've had issues and you've been so focused on work that I felt alone. You need to stop twisting everything around." My frustration boiled over. "You're the one twisting things. You can't blame me for your choices. You chose to go behind my back. You chose to betray me." At that moment, Jessica's demeanor shifted slightly. I could see the facade cracking as she realized the gravity of the situation. "Okay, maybe I haven't been the perfect wife," she said, her voice quieter. "But I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Didn't mean for it to go this far," I echoed incredulously. "You're having an affair and you think it's okay to downplay it. You're making excuses instead of taking responsibility for your actions." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see the anger, hurt, and confusion flickering across her face. For a moment I thought she might break down, but then she steeled herself again, crossing her arms defiantly. "You wouldn't understand," she said, her voice laced with bitterness. "You've turned into someone I don't recognize anymore. Maybe this is what I need to find myself again." "Find yourself?" I scoffed. "You don't find yourself by tearing down your marriage and cheating on your husband. If you wanted to find yourself, you should have communicated with me instead of sneaking around with Michael." Suddenly, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. This wasn't just anger, it was heartbreak. I had loved this woman with everything I had, and now she was standing in front of me, denying the hurt she had inflicted and justifying her betrayal. "Do you even care about what you've done?" I asked, my voice softer now, almost pleading. "Or is it all just about you?" She hesitated, her expression softening for just a moment. "I never meant to hurt you, David. I thought we were falling apart and I don't know, I wanted someone to make me feel good again." The honesty of her statement struck me like a blow. I felt my heart ache for the woman I once loved, the girl I had married. "So you chose to betray me, you chose to hurt me." "I didn't think about it like that," she murmured, looking down at the floor. "I just felt so alone and confused." "But you didn't even try to talk to me," I pressed. "You didn't even think about how your actions would affect me. Instead, you ran off to someone else." Jessica opened her mouth looking for words, but nothing came. I could see the turmoil in her eyes, and a part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay, but I couldn't, not after everything. "Here's the reality, Jessica," I said, my voice steady. "You need to understand that there are consequences to your actions. I'm not going to be the person who just sits back and lets this happen. I'm done being the victim in this situation." I took a step back, gathering my thoughts. "You need to decide what you really want. If you want to work on this marriage, we need to get to the root of what's broken. But if you're still involved with him, then you need to be honest with yourself and with me." Jessica looked at me, her eyes glistening with tears now. It felt like the wall she had built around herself was starting to crack, but I didn't know if it was too late. I was done playing games and living in denial. I had given her every chance to come clean, but now I needed to think about my own future. I wanted my marriage to work, but I wasn't going to allow myself to be the laughingstock while she figured out her own mess. As I turned away, I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. The next steps would be crucial. I had to decide whether to fight for us or to start thinking about my own healing. But first, I needed to leave this confrontation with a sense of direction, a plan to take back my life and reclaim my identity. The confrontation had left me in a whirlwind of emotions. I stepped away from Jessica, my heart racing and my mind racing faster. I had just laid out the truth, and while I expected some sort of immediate resolution, all I felt was uncertainty. It was hard to reconcile the woman I loved with the betrayal she had handed me on a silver platter. As the day went on, the house felt heavy with tension, an oppressive silence that was almost deafening. Jessica moved around, her movements mechanical as if she were a stranger in our home. I could see the conflict in her eyes, but I was too hurt to offer comfort. Instead, I retreated to the guest room, wanting to distance myself from her and the chaos swirling around us. In that solitude, I allowed myself to think about what had happened. I replayed the confrontation, analyzing every word exchanged and her reactions. I had wanted her to feel the gravity of her actions, to grasp the pain she had caused, but it seemed she was more focused on self-preservation than accountability. I felt a deep sadness for the loss of the relationship we once had, the connection that seemed to have slipped through my fingers like sand. That evening, as I sat on the edge of the bed, I couldn't shake the thought of how I wanted to proceed. I had initially thought about confronting Michael, the man involved, but that felt like a detour from the real issue. Jessica was the one who had made a vow to me. She was the one who needed to face the consequences of her choices. I gathered my thoughts and made a decision. I would give Jessica a choice, a chance to redeem herself or to end things. I wasn't going to wait for her to figure out her feelings or to coddle her through her confusion. If she wanted to make things right, she needed to take the initiative. But if she was still leaning towards Michael, she had to make that choice clear. When I finally emerged from the guest room, I found Jessica sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her phone. The dim light from the lamp cast shadows across her face, accentuating the worry etched into her features. She looked up as I entered the room, and for a moment I saw vulnerability instead of defiance. "David," she started, her voice hesitating, "I've been thinking." "About what?" I interjected, not wanting to give her an easy escape from the conversation. "About us," she said softly, biting her lip. "About what I've done. I know I messed up and I'm sorry for hurting you. I don't want to lose you." A surge of hope flickered in my chest, but I quickly tempered it. "You need to understand that saying sorry isn't enough. You need to show me you mean it. I can't keep being the only one fighting for this marriage." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know. I'm still so confused about everything and I want to figure it out. I just don't want to lose you in the process." "Then you need to be honest with yourself and with me," I replied. "If there's still something going on with Michael, you need to end it. I can't endure being in limbo while you decide what you want. I deserve better." Jessica looked down, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the table. "I don't know if I can just cut him off. I thought I was looking for something I was missing, but maybe I was just running away from my own problems. I need time." "Time is not something I can give you indefinitely," I said firmly. "I'm not here to wait around while you figure out your feelings. You have to decide if you want to be with me or him. If you choose him, then we need to end this chapter once and for all." She looked up, desperation in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you, David. You mean everything to me." "Then prove it," I replied, my voice steady. "I want to see you take responsibility for your actions to earn back my trust. I want you to cut all ties with him, and if you can't do that, then I'll have to move on." The words hung in the air between us, charged with tension. There was a flicker of understanding in her eyes, and for the first time I felt like we were on the same page. It was an acknowledgement that both of us needed to face the reality of our choices. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice small but resolute. "I'll end it with Michael. I'll figure this out, I promise." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "You need to mean it, Jess. I can't keep being the fallback plan. If you want this marriage to work, you have to fight for it." "I will," she promised, and in that moment I believed her, but doubts still lingered in the back of my mind. Trust would take time to rebuild, and I couldn't let my guard down completely. As the night wore on, I felt a mix of cautious optimism and lingering hurt. We were at a crossroads, and while I hoped this could lead us back to a better place, I was also acutely aware that actions would speak louder than words. My heart remained guarded as I prepared for what lay ahead. No matter what happened, I had made my stance clear. I was ready to fight for my marriage, but I expected nothing less than full commitment from Jessica. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be. Nights filled with doubt and conversations that would unearth old scars. But for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of purpose. I was ready to navigate this tumultuous path, knowing that the future of our marriage hinged on honesty, accountability, and the willingness to rebuild what had been broken. The following days felt like a slow-motion descent into uncertainty. Jessica had committed to ending her affair with Michael, and while I wanted to believe her, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of my mind. The promise of honesty and openness hung in the air, yet I knew trust is not a switch you can flip on and off. It takes time, and with each passing day, I felt the weight of that truth settle heavily on my shoulders. We had agreed to go to couples therapy, a step I was hesitant about but knew we needed. It was a chance for us to learn to communicate again, to dig into the issues that had brought us to this point. I hoped it would serve as a foundation for rebuilding our relationship, but I knew this wasn't going to be easy. The first session felt awkward. Jessica fidgeted in her seat, occasionally glancing at me as if gauging my reaction. I could feel the tension rolling off her in waves. Our therapist, Dr. Stevens, introduced herself, and I saw a flicker of doubt in Jessica's eyes. It was clear she was nervous about opening up, about confronting the truth in front of a stranger. "Let's start by discussing how we got here," Dr. Stevens said, her tone warm yet firm. "I want each of you to share your feelings about what's been happening in your relationship." Jessica spoke first. "I feel like I lost myself for a while. I was unhappy, and instead of coming to David with my feelings, I sought comfort elsewhere. I know it was wrong, and I've realized I need to be honest about everything. I just don't know how I got so far off track." I clenched my jaw, feeling the sting of her words. "You think a few apologies are going to fix everything? You didn't just lose yourself. You chose to betray me. You hurt me deeply, Jess." "I know, and I'm trying to take responsibility," she snapped, her voice tight with frustration. "I didn't come here to argue. I came to work on this." Dr. Stevens intervened, her calm demeanor guiding the conversation. "It sounds like there's a lot of pain and frustration on both sides. Let's focus on how you can communicate these feelings more constructively." As the session unfolded, I felt a mix of anger and hope. The therapist encouraged us to express our emotions, to delve into the underlying issues that had festered for so long. I talked about how I had felt neglected, how Jessica's emotional distance had pushed me away. I wanted her to understand that her choices had consequences, not just for her but for me too. By the end of the session, we had skimmed the surface of our issues, but I felt a sense of progress. It was painful to confront our problems, but I was determined to make this work. I wanted to believe that we could emerge from this stronger, but a small voice in my head reminded me that it would take more than just therapy sessions to fix what was broken. As we left the therapist's office, I turned to Jessica. "I meant what I said. You need to show me you're committed to fixing this. I can't keep putting in all the effort." "I know," she said quietly, her eyes searching mine. "I will do whatever it takes to make this right, I promise." But moments later, doubt crept in again. I had an instinct that Jessica was still grappling with her feelings. I could see it in her eyes, the uncertainty lurking beneath her promises. I needed more than just words. I needed action. The following weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. We continued therapy, having sessions that stirred up old wounds. Jessica began to share more about her feelings, and I tried to listen without judgment, even when it felt like a betrayal to my heart. Each session revealed layers of hurt I had never fully understood, the loneliness she felt, the pressures of work, and her own insecurities that had driven her to seek validation elsewhere. But there were days when her phone buzzed at odd hours, and a pit would form in my stomach. I wanted to trust her, but those lingering doubts clawed at me. Whenever I broached the subject, Jessica would become defensive, insisting that she was done with Michael and was fully committed to us. It was hard for me to let go of the fear that she might slip back into those old habits. Then came the day that pushed me to my breaking point. I had planned a surprise dinner for us, hoping to reignite the spark we had lost. I spent the day cooking her favorite meal, pouring my heart into every detail. As I set the table, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, and there it was, a text from Michael. My heart dropped. My hands trembled as I opened the message. It was innocuous enough. "Hey, just checking in, hope you're doing well." But the timing felt intentional, and it pierced through all the progress we had made. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal wash over me. I waited for Jessica to come home, my heart racing and my mind swirling. When she walked through the door, I confronted her immediately. "Why is he texting you, Jess? I thought you were done with him." She looked taken aback, her eyes widening in shock. "What are you talking about? Who's texting me?" I showed her the message, my voice trembling. With hurt, "Michael, why is he reaching out to you? You promised me you cut ties." At that moment I could see the panic in her eyes. "I didn't even respond, I swear, I didn't invite this to happen." "It doesn't matter if you didn't respond, you shouldn't even be in contact with him." I snapped, frustration boiling over. "This is unacceptable." "David, please," she said, her voice rising. "I'm trying to make this work. I didn't ask for this. I can't control what he does." "You can control who you allow into your life," I shouted. "You have a choice and you need to make it. You have to decide if you want this marriage or if you want him." Jessica's face fell, and I could see the weight of my words hitting her hard. "I want you," she whispered, tears spilling from her eyes. "I've made mistakes and I don't want to go back to that life. I want to fix this." I felt a flicker of hope, but it was overshadowed by the pain. "I can't keep doing this, Jess. I'm trying to give you chance, but it feels like you're still holding on to that part of your life. If you want to move forward, you need to cut all ties with him. No more excuses." "I promise I will," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll block him. I'll do whatever it takes." As I looked into her eyes, I saw a glimpse of sincerity, but I was still reeling from the betrayal. I had opened myself up to her, and in return, all I felt was uncertainty and heartache. That night, sleep eluded me once more. I lay awake, wrestling with my thoughts. I wanted to believe that Jessica was truly committed to working on our relationship, but doubts remained. I was caught in a cycle of hope and despair, and I didn't know how to break free. I needed to prioritize my healing and reevaluate my boundaries. This journey would take time, and I was determined not to allow myself to be drawn back into a toxic cycle of trust and betrayal. My heart ached for clarity, and I hoped that, together, we could find a way to navigate the tumultuous waters ahead. The following days were fraught with tension, a fragile silence that hung over the house. Jessica had blocked Michael, pledging that she was committed to making things work between us. But even as she made these promises, I could still feel the weight of doubt pressing on my chest. We continued attending therapy, and while some sessions felt productive, others left me feeling more drained than ever. Jessica was earnest in her attempts to communicate her feelings, but I found myself constantly questioning her sincerity. I was caught in a tug-of-war between wanting to believe her and the pain of betrayal that gnawed at my heart. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, Jessica and I sat on the couch, the air thick with unspoken words. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something monumental, but I didn't know if it was a breakthrough or a breakdown. "David," she said softly, her eyes searching mine, "I know things have been difficult, but I'm really trying. I want to move forward." "Trying isn't enough," I replied, my voice steady but laced with exhaustion. "I need to see action. I can't keep reopening these wounds if you're not fully committed to fixing what's broken." She reached for my hand, and I hesitated before letting her grasp it. "I want this marriage. I want to be with you. I've realized that the thrill I was chasing was just a distraction from my own unhappiness. I thought I was missing something in my life, but I was only pushing you away. I need you to understand that I'm hurting, Jess," I said, feeling the vulnerability spill out. "Trust isn't something I can regain overnight. It's going to take time, and I need you to be patient with me while I figure this out." "I understand," she replied, her voice earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes. I want to rebuild what we had. I want to earn your trust back." As the days turned into weeks, I began to see small changes in Jessica. She started being more transparent with her phone and her time, actively involving me in her life again. She shared her insecurities, her fears, and what she needed from me, which created an opening for honest dialogue. However, there were moments when I still felt that flicker of doubt. I would catch myself staring at her, analyzing her every move, looking for signs of deceit. It was exhausting, and I wanted to break free from that cycle but struggled to do so. One afternoon, as I was cleaning out the garage, I came across an old box filled with mementos from our early days, photos, love notes, and trinkets from our adventures together. As I sifted through the memories, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. This was the couple we once were, filled with hope and love. Sitting on the floor, I felt tears prick at my eyes. I realized that while I was hurt and angry, I also missed the bond we had. I wanted to find a way back to that place, but it would require both of us to be fully invested in the process. That evening, I initiated a conversation with Jessica. "I found some old things today," I said, my voice softening. "It reminded me of how we used to be. I want to get back to that, but it's going to take work." "I want that too," she replied, her eyes glistening with understanding. "I want to show you that I can be better, that I can be the partner you need." I took a deep breath, feeling the knot in my chest begin to loosen. "Let's set some goals together. We need to understand what we want out of this relationship moving forward. It can't just be about fixing what's broken. It needs to be about building something new." We spent the next few hours discussing our hopes and fears, establishing boundaries, and creating a roadmap for our relationship. It felt like stepping onto a tightrope, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. As the weeks passed, Jessica continued to show consistency and commitment. She attended therapy sessions and actively worked on herself, both individually and together with me. We laughed more, shared stories, and even began to find joy in the little things again. At times, I still felt the shadow of doubt creep in, but I was learning how to manage it, how to communicate those feelings without letting them control the narrative of our relationship. One night, as we sat together watching one of our favorite movies, I turned to her and smiled. "You know, I never thought we'd make it to this point after everything, but seeing you work so hard to earn my trust again means the world to me." Jessica smiled back, her eyes lighting up. "I'll keep fighting for us, I promise. I won't let you down again." In that moment, I realized that while the journey was far from over, we were moving in the right direction. We had both learned valuable lessons about communication, trust, and vulnerability. As I reflected on everything that had transpired, I understood that relationships are not easy, and they require continuous effort and commitment from both partners. I had learned to value open communication and to express my feelings honestly, no matter how uncomfortable it felt. While I couldn't predict what the future would hold, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that we were both willing to put in the work to make our marriage thrive. In the end, I realized that love is not just a feeling, it's a choice we make every day. And I was prepared to choose Jessica, to choose us, even as we navigated the complexities of rebuilding our life together.